So, welcome back. If my calculations are correct, this is officially the 50th episode total for the Esper campaign. Since I did the first one with AI and then took the wheel after I said, you know what, going analog, and then eventually I ended up on here, digital, a digital workspace with the analog approach, character sheet in hand. It's been quite the ride, and it continues. The last Lex Talk episode I did before this was very inspiring. You guys shared some really good, strong opinions. So usually my full, a few usual commenters and a couple of new ones, expressing what you want to see or what you hope so or what you do personally. Role play, whether it's just simply detailing what happens or providing a very engaging role play. And one comment stuck out. It was the severity, the significance of the scene. Scenes that are very monumental, that matter the most, that seem to be the hot spot of the episode, deserve full role play. Not dressing up, getting into voice. Again, voices are questionable on my part, but just acting out what happens. I do what I can to give you a picture of the scene because it's just my face here. You don't see really a location or image anymore. I don't do that anymore. Kind of slows things down. I try to detail what's happening, where are the characters, what's around them, what they're trying to achieve, what's the goal, plot twist, alter scene, stuff like that. And so I'm going to try my best to pick scenes that stick out, that deserve to be role played to a greater extent, with greater effort, compared to be just like my characters go from this point, they walk over here, and now they're at the door. Okay, they enter the building. Moments like that will be common. That's obvious. But moments that matter, oh, now we're talking with the boss. We're talking with a very prominent character, a mentor, based on the Chronica Feudalis rules, called mentors. Protagonist, antagonist, a mentor, a agent, a simple character. Moments that matter to you and me, I will do my best to express that using some level of acting and improv. Now, I bring this up because not just only because of the last episode, and this is episode 50 technically of the entire Esper campaign within this arc of Legend of Esper. I feel like this episode should be mm, not overly exaggerated or outplayed or stretched too long, but a critical turning point for the characters. I believe it deserves it. I'm not asking the Oracle what exactly goes on here. I'm going to throw in a twist. Something so out of left field, it makes sense after you think about it. Now, remember, in the last episode, I actually said, if I recall correctly, that they eventually got to Corwood. I'm stepping that back. They did indeed leave on this boat right here. They did leave the port city of Haldreth, and they made their way north. Now, this could be a fishing boat. They just hitched a ride. Remember, they paid, they rented a spot, they gave the money to the captain, and he allowed them to join. They were going up to Corwood, a fishing expedition, etc. So there'll be occasional stops they take to fish. But as they stop right about here, look where they are. Look where they're parallel with. They are right next to not just the landmass, but they're next to the peaks of Pantheon. What was it I mentioned some time ago about the peaks of Pantheon? They have a certain someone, the dragon, the Esper dragon. So let's go to our lore, the Bible of this entire world, and click on Esper Peak. This is the Esper dragon. Not much is known about this guy. I have here that it's dormant, but what we do know, and I should write down actually, is that it is inspired. I love how I put occupation like it has a job, but basically inspired by Godzilla, where it is the dominant alpha male of the world. And so, with that in mind, it's a flying Godzilla. It's a lot of Mothra and other Godzilla-based characters fly. It only shows itself when there is a world threat. When we look at the Master, a character who I feel has been up and down in regards to character building, he has shown himself in some form or fashion, against Hulk specifically, and Jory, the last couple arcs ago, fought them, and was defeated, but then turned into some strange spirit, some strange light energy. Is that silly? Well, it's a fantasy world. It could work. Why not? But he went north. Why did he go north? That's something that I said out loud, I threw out there, but still don't know why. Some of you could be yelling at the screen right now because the Esper Dragon. It wants to attack the Esper Dragon, wants to get its revenge. That's another potential idea I had. I'm assuming that's what most of my audience is probably thinking. Oh yeah, it got defeated by the Esper Dragon earlier in the lore, so it might as well get its revenge. Well, okay. But why is it in a light form? That's what really confuses me right now. Did Holth, and that's what I said, so I threw that out there, and now I'm trying to figure it out. Did Holth and Jory truly defeat it? Defeat him? Again, let's go to the Master, and what I want to do, it is time to reveal, I'm going to hide this actually. It's time to reveal something that the Master has been hiding. His true source of power. This was the big plot twist I'm talking about. The Master is being controlled. He is a avatar of a certain someone, a certain antagonist. Let's reveal it. If you guys can see, I have this part darkened. Now, I will reveal it. Was the first mortal to enter the Dark Realms and become an avatar of the entity, eventually becoming too corrupt and uncontrolled, abandoned by the entity. That is what I decided on some time ago. He was the first mortal of the Escabur landscape, of the settlers, to enter the portal at Ashford. That's why he destroyed it, or attempted to. Why did he enter it? One habit I have a tendency to do too much of is why. I always try to figure out why in this world setting. Could be a good thing. That might be a positive. I want to have a foundation for a reason, but it might not be as important as I think. Why can really push things back, in my opinion. I want to show something happen, not just why, but give a basic why to show something for you guys, the outcome. What matters is the present, not just historically. I'm not trying to write a book here or a world setting to sell to you guys out there. Like here's a full on, a Harn, which is a super famous world setting for Harn Master, but it's also an world setting itself. Harn is an extremely detailed. Me, myself, and Die character, YouTuber Trevor Duvall talked about it in one of his Sage videos. Harn is a sophisticated, um, micro managed world setting. You can zoom in on any area and you can learn what you want about any NPC, their family, their favorite smell, their favorite food, all that stuff. I'm not trying to do that here. I don't have the time, I don't have the luxury, I don't have the skill set. But I'm trying to build something where I don't exactly need to have a full novel to spring an idea and that is the master in this metaphor into the limelight, which is the present. So he was the first mortal to enter the Dark Realms and become an avatar of the entity. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to our document and take out this part here. Because when I first wrote that, I'm like, you know what? He's corrupt. He's acting sporadically. He cannot be controlled by the entity. No, don't like that. He is the first mortal, and he is the avatar for the entity. The master is so evil. Again, I haven't given him a character yet, a movie character comparison. He has no perks or quirks, which was my old format. He wants to rule the world, but we know he's evil. And because of that, because of the Dark Realms works, the Dark Realms, which again, I want to show you, here's another why of the Dark Realms, or more so how the Dark Realms works. When it's entered, it feeds off the fears and regret of the Esper people. The fears and regrets becomes more powerful off of that, slowly feeding off, unknowingly, the settlers of Escabur. Now, we could deliver more on that, like why would the Master be a perfect host for the entity's power? Because he's corrupt, he's misguided, he's evil, he's a bad guy. His his logic, his path in life lines up almost perfectly with the entity. The entity is also evil. He is the Dormammu of this world. So that is exactly what I was hoping for. I was hoping for that moment to think of a movie character, I guess in this sense, a comic book character that matches up perfectly with what I'm trying to do with the entity. So, again, he is inspired by, I might spell this wrong, but Dormammu. I will check that spelling later. Dormammu. Okay. It keeps things quick for the role play. I don't have to give a full, biography of the character, the movie character. Think about it. I'm a movie guy, as I would say. Dormammu, perfect. Dormammu wants to conquer the world. He lives in this pocket dimension. Maybe pocket dimension is still debatable. And he feeds off. He gives his power, bestows his power to a select individual, kind of like a Sith has an apprentice. He bestows his power, or he guides, he corrupts someone, and the master was that. Now, could be a few problems with the master. Maybe didn't really work out that well for the entity, and he abandoned him eventually. But let's leave that where the master is still the host. It's still the avatar of the entity. And so after the master was destroyed by Mortar or by Hulf and Jory and company, he lost his physical form. He turned into a spirit, but of pure darkness. So the entity lost his host lost his physical form, but he was still present in the reality. So what we're looking at, if you look at the master's dead. His physical form is gone. He now is a mix between himself, his corruption, and the entity. The power source of the entity, the battery. A conduit, I guess I'm trying to figure out what to say here. Conduit of the entity. And so he flew north because the Esper Dragon defeated him before. So now he is flying north to the Esper Dragon. If it's because he can sense the Esper Dragon or he knows about the Esper Dragon's whereabouts, but perhaps historically, this would make sense. After the initial defeat of the Master, and the Esper Dragon showed up, killed the Master, or defeated him, hurt him terribly, the Master retreated back to the Temple of Dragon. He was not deemed a threat anymore by the Esper's standards, and the Esper went back the Esper Dragon went back to hibernate, or to his domain, his chamber of solace. And so the Master had to go into a stasis a state of healing, kind of like Thor's father would when he's hurt in one of the first Thor movies. So, in similar fashion, he would harden up as a statue and heal himself over a span of what, 30, 40 years? Now, with that in mind, when Hulf interrupted that healing process and wakened him, he was not as strong as he used to be. That's why Hulf and a couple of mortals were able. Well, one was a magician, a magic user. They were able to eventually defeat him. It took some time, or it took some effort, and some people getting hurt and killed, but ultimately was defeated. Turned into a spirit, flew north. He's like, that's it. You know what? I'm gonna go. I'm going to the Esper Dragon, and I think the Master, what he wants to do is take over the body of the Master, of the Esper Dragon. The Master, with the entity's influence and control, wants to. There we go. There's a character. I just realized a character for a movie character inspired role here. An inspired character from a movie. If we go to the where is the Master? Temple of Dragon. That's his home. He is going to be inspired by Black Adam. That works perfectly. The Wizard from DC, which I know just a bit about, bestows his power on a certain individual, and gave his power to the kid and became Captain Marvel or Shazam. And same thing with Black Adam. Black Adam is vengeful, so he's going to go after the dragon. So with that in mind, he's going to go to the dragon and attempt to take over his body. So right now, the Master is kind of like a Dementor. It's just this weird shadowy force that's flying through the air, but it's in the shape of a dragon because that's the Master kind of seems to idolize as a dragon. And so now he's on his way to take over the body of the Esper Dragon. The Esper Dragon could be incredibly old. It could be millions of years old, thousands of years old. It's very old. It's the remaining dragon probably on the entire planet. And it's dying off. Its last effort it took against the Master took so much effort that it's slowly dying off. So let's get that detail in the book in here. So, um, and I can't forget about the magic sword. That's still a thing, which Hulf has in the moment. Let's go to the Temple of the Esper Peak. Okay, so is slowly withering away. The last fight it had with the Master spent its remaining life energy. Okay, withering away. I'm going to just say it's dormant. There you go. So that this big legendary dragon that the settlers around the Northern Island fear as a legend, as a superstition, is practically becoming a doormat, a rug at this point. And then the Master is going to take over his body. That is the current Master's intention. So let's go back to the Master and detail this. Wants to take, let's see, get revenge by taking over the Esper Dragon's body. Now, the Master is formless, doesn't have a actual physical body. So he is in his, I should say, shadow form at the moment. There we go. So this all kind of lines up now, which why the Master will just zip up and fly north. Now, finally, back to our party. So they are here. They have no idea what's about to go down. They know the master is up, it's in on this side of the map, but they don't know why. They're thinking the dragon. Maybe I think that's what Shafa did mention, the dragon, but they don't exactly know of the dragon's condition. Maybe they don't even believe about the dragon. So right now, I turned the clock back a bit for our characters. They're right there because I want to have an emotional scene for the characters. They're both sitting on the edge while the boat stopped and the fishermen are just enjoying themselves fishing in these cold waters. I'm not sure exactly for what. But anyways, Holf is looking and he has a stick and he's just kind of pushing around a rock, a pebble on the boat's floor, on the billboard, on the boat's the floorboards. And Mortar is looking at the mountain range as the boat kind of goes back and forth like this, kind of, you get that sea sickness, that motion of a boat. He looks up and he looks to his bigger brother, Ulf, and he says, Ulf, you think the master's up there? And they're looking at the tallest peak. It's surrounded by clouds, covered with snow, as it always is. Ulf looks up and he says, I'm only imagining what kind of damage he'll do if he is truly going after the Esper dragon. I never believed it when I heard about the rumors. And then Mortar, do you remember Mortar is, he is Frodo, Bilbo. I'm doing Bilbo. Okay. So he's looking up. He's like, gosh, what do you think we should do? As he looks up to his big brother. Ulf is, for the first time, as it seems, since Mortar found him, he doesn't know what to do. He looks down to Mortar and says, little brother, I don't know. I really wish Edwin was here. And so, while saying that, Hulf, I'm going to compel dark bending, which is a very small power they have. They still don't completely understand or comprehend. It's just it's a very little power they have, and if they're closer to a portal, they become far more greater in potential, but more unstable. So I'm going to compel and give our characters a fate point. And so compelling that, as Hulf, his eyes begin to go dark as he's looking at the mountains, and in his perspective, he begins to kind of zoom in on the peak. But it's kind of like a not a hypothetical. It's kind of like how he would fly to if he had the power to just fly and just go up there and fight the master one last time. He's just kind of imagining it, but its eyes are blank. And Mortar's looking at him, and he sees his brother is just fixed on the mountain. He's his brother. He's kind of just grabbing his shoulder and just shaking him out of it. And so, moments later, Edmund appears. The area goes completely silent. The fishermen on the boat, there's a few scattered fishermen, they're just gone. The sea water is steady. There is no waves. The boat does not rock. Completely steady. Edwin shows up in front of them. Hulf snaps out of it. He looks closer, and Edwin's there in the distance on the other side of the boat. He walks up to them. He walks through a couple crates, like he actually phases through it, and he sits down in front of them on a box. He looks to both of them, and he actually speaks this time. He says to Mortar, Mortar, Ulf, my very gifted nephews, you two have made me so proud. But I feel there is more you need to do. This world is in danger. I don't have much time, which is pretty convenient. He says, I must tell you something, Holf. As he looks directly at Holf. I have given you much trouble in the past. When you first found me in that chamber, a long time ago, freed me into this spirit. I never told you why I was down there. And Holf is thinking, well, the Dark Realms. You're trying to find your way in. And Edwin says, no, I wasn't trying to find my way in. I was trying to find a way to destroy it. Both kind of, he's a little shocked here because he thought his uncle was kind of addicted to the Dark Realms, like Jory is in a way. Mortar is just kind of listening in. Remember, there's nobody around. They're in their own little um, enclosed, isolated event. This isolated vision that both brothers are connected to. They are using their dark bending ability to speak to a spirit. And Edwin has been this literal spiritual guide for them. And so Edwin stands up, looks back at the mountains, and he says, "The dragon. He is, or it is the most powerful." Or he says, "It was the most powerful being on this rock. But I feel from what I can sense, that's no longer the case. The master, he is there." And then he can't say anything else. He's just like, he's trying to comprehend what would happen if the master takes the body of the dragon. Paul stands up. He stands up. This is stern authority. It's one of his aspects I kind of gave him, just I upgraded for him, stern authority. He stands up and he's, Uncle, what are you saying? What is the master planning up there? How do you know all this? Edwin, he confesses to Wolf. Just look, the master. Oh, you know what? I gotta do an age check. This is very important. So, I thought of something. So Edwin is roughly 54 years old. Dorman, Damon is 53. Let's say he's the older brother, 58. And the master is roughly, let's say, 72. Whoops. Okay. So he's 72, which means lining up the timeline. Or you know what? Not 72. Here's a question for everybody. I'm thinking that the Temple of Dragon was actually a prehistoric site. The Master, he is the remaining Eldoridian. Why not? I think it makes sense. So remember, the Eldoridians were the prior occupants of the land of Escabur. And if that's true, again, pre 500 years ago, he is probably going to be, let's do this. Race, Eldoridian. I'm going to say 572 years old. And his focus is to retake Escabur. That means was or is this, well, actually, that's kind of a it's debatable at the moment. So, is the sole survivor surviving Eldorinian in Escubar? That is something Edwin was trying to do. He discovered the Master's power, and if he were to prevent a catastrophic event that he somehow knew about, if he were able to destroy or find a power to destroy the Dark Realms, that would cut off the source of power for the Master. So if we go to or if we go to our friend Edwin and click here, he was trying to destroy the Dark Realm portals. At least find a way to cut off, I should say, to siphon the power source for the Master. There's the big reveal. Edwin, this entire time, again, I am kind of retconning some stuff here because, again, AI, this was all during the AI storytelling. But in my eyes now, the Master, his purpose is to reignite the prior civilization of his people. Kind of like Kryptonians. Brainiac in that man. Well, actually, depends which Brainiac we're mentioning here. But I'm thinking about what. Yeah, Dormammu. Okay, so again, Dormammu's the entity, um, and in a totally different franchise, Black Adam is essentially the Master. He is vengeful. So he's 500 plus years old. He's an Eldorian. He's the only surviving Eldorian. We don't know what happened to the entire Eldorian race. There weren't many, again, ruins around Escabur as much as we knew about yet. But that explains why he's going after the dragon. So the dragon is another mystery we can obviously talk about once we actually reach him. But out of our control, the master is at the Esper Dragon's chamber. We don't know what's happening. I'm not going to talk about that just yet. I'm trying to figure out the foundation, the why. I don't want to. I am again pushing on, but I want to detail every single nook and cranny about their origin. But I want to. I feel like this is a good foundation. The Master's Eldorinian, and he is now formless, and he's on his way to address the Esper Dragon. Edwin was again he was a powerful magic user, or at least a bender, and he was trying to figure out a way. Somehow he found out about the master and his intentions, trying to destroy the portals, but didn't work out. The entity got to him and trapped him in that time paradox that was again much earlier arcs, and that's where Hall found him. So we now know the reasoning before this. So we let's jump back to our party. That's where Edwin explains what he was trying to initially do. He didn't want to talk about it yet until Hulk discovered the Dark Realms himself, which he did. So he says after that exposition dump, he says, "I failed to do what you can accomplish, Ulf, Mortar. You both carry the power of the Dark Realms in your blood. You've been exposed. You both have been in Dark Realms. You have the power to defeat the Master and finally close off these portals to protect our land. Do what I have could not." And then he kind of just steps back and fades away. And then they awaken back. They're asleep and they're finally back at the docks at Corwood. And their boat, some guy, the captain wakes them up and says, "Hey, hey, guys, hey, we're here. Wake him up." And they're like, "Oh." So they're like, "Oh, they're like, kind of, they slept halfway through." But obviously they had that vision, that interaction with Edward. That's where I would close off this episode. I felt I wanted to give some context, some role play, Hope you guys thought it was enough. In this episode, because it's the 50th episode of Escabur, I felt it was significant. I don't know what's going to be next. The priority right now is to have Hulk meet Damon once again after all these years. Again, 20, 30 years later, after the Great Rift. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Definitely an exposition dump, but I felt like we were doing it together, even though it's just me right now. But again, we were working it out. This is all, again, off the top of my head, off the cuff, just for fun, improv. And well, actually, we're kind of connecting some dots. I felt like I've been leaving breadcrumbs for myself, my future self, to eventually figure out, and I felt like we kind of did figure that out. So that's all for today. Thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.